Welcome, viewers and listeners, to another edition of CHP Talks. I'm here today with Mr. Jeff Gunnarson, who is the president of Campaign Life Coalition. Is that the right designation?
Yeah, that's good for our purposes. It technically is national president.
Okay, national
Just to,
president.
just to define the difference, because we have provincial presidents as well,
Right.
but that's okay.
Thanks, Jeff. No, that's great, and I know you have good work going on in various provinces. We've had good contact across the country with some of your other offices. But anyway, I'm going to give folks a little introduction to you. Just hang on a second. So for folks who may not know, Jeff Gunnarson became the national president of Campaign Life Coalition in 2018. He and his wife, Camilla, now live in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and they are the proud parents of 4 children. Jeff originally came to Campaign Life Coalition in January of 2006. Under duress, it says, he had participated in and helped to organize some local pro-life events since the early 90s when Camilla joined her pro-life office in Burlington, Ontario. His activism solidified once becoming a Catholic in 1996. Jeff's education was in broadcast journalism, and most of his adult work experience was in sales. So he arrived at CLC's doorstep without any deep political or historical knowledge of the inner workings of the political arm of the pro-life movement. Since then, of course, he has quickly become an expert in this field and is working to extend Campaign Life Coalition's impact in leadership races, nomination battles, and general elections. Also, other work, of course, the Campaign Life Coalition is key, central role in the March for Life, annual March for Life, and other pro-life events across the country. And we've appreciated very much, Jeff, your leadership in that way and, and your friendship as we work together to try to save the lives of the preborn, the elderly, and the vulnerable. So thank you. Welcome to the program, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Rod, as always. I'll add one little fact on that bio, and we have 4 adult children, one of whom, our eldest, Matthew, is now married with 2. We have 2 grandchildren from him, and they're twins, just born about 3 months ago.
Oh, wonderful!
So that's why we moved to New Brunswick.
Yeah, what a great reason to move. So
yes, indeed.
So Jeff, a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from you. I get regular emails from Campaign Life Coalition from you and Jack Fonseca and others, and was a notice, a notification, a warning, I guess, that our Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, is once again moving in a strong way against the pregnancy care centers across the country. And he's done this before. He seems to like to demonize people in the pro-life movement and as if we're up to no good. And all of his scandals and all of his other activities, use of taxpayer money and foreign influence and all these other things are he wants to put them on the back burner and have people focus on the work of the not on the work. He wants to create a narrative that the pregnancy care centers are not giving full information, and therefore he wants to take away. They don't all have charitable status, but some do, and do good work. Anyway, let's start with you can describe what the pregnancy care centers do across the country that is good for our nation, good for the next generation, and good for young moms that are struggling with their role, both before and after giving birth. But let's start there, and then you can just tell us exactly what's up with this attack on the pregnancy care centers.
Yeah, and you mentioned you get our emails. Well, I just sent one out about 10 minutes ago, so you'll get another one on this very topic, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
It's sort of an update because there is no official bill yet. They have not had first reading on this this idea of clamping down on the uh, crisis pregnancy centers across Canada, but they're certainly, but in doing so, even announcing it, it was part of their platform. I don't know if you remember, it was actually part of their platform at some point. I'm not sure if it was during the election or just some kind of mandate that came out early on, but they really are jeopardizing a vital lifeline of support for Canadian women who find themselves in a crisis pregnancy. And these, Rod, as you know, you're well aware of the fact that we have no law in Canada restricting abortion whatsoever. And on top of that, we don't have any politicians that are willing to step out and try to do something about that. And
I'm sure you're referring to no politicians who have seats in Parliament.
no elected politicians.
Yeah,
Yeah, no elected
sure.
politicians. I only call a politician once they're elected. You're not a politician until you're elected. That's my view. So
Well, many
I
of us
think you're
actually, the Canadian public doesn't actually like the term politician, or if you
no,
take that label, but uh, we are, of course, among the ones, as you know, and you're so kind to us all the time in linking arms with us on this issue. But of course, we are running off and on, or when there are elections and by-elections, we are running to be able to represent the unborn and pregnant women
yeah,
who are
that's right. And I am glad you mentioned that because there's something we could do together on that as well. We'll hopefully get into that in a bit. But uh, I lost our train of thought. What were we? Uh, I was
Well,
segueing
you
into
said there was
something.
no politicians speaking
Yeah,
out
no
on this
politicians
issue.
speaking out against it. So, um, in lieu of that, though, I mean, the sort of the silver lining is the fact that we have these people, these very good people on the ground, operating crisis pregnancy centers, any kind of pro-life support, really, even the educational arm of the pro-life movement, all of the small right to life groups that you find in many cities and towns across Canada. Those people are doing yeoman service by opening their doors and welcoming these women who need help. And uh, you know, all I think most people watching know what they're uh, doing for these women. Providing diapers and formula and clothing and cribs and strollers and all sort of, and counseling as well. Just help with whatever is in need at the time. So to come down on these um, crisis pregnancy centers is just evil. That's all. There's no reason for it. This is a last ditch effort by Trudeau to somehow, maybe he thinks he's going to have some kind of legacy, some kind of um, monument made to say that here lies the man that closed down crisis. Like I don't understand it. I mean, how can anybody take solace in closing down something that is so helpful to the communities? You know what? I think the worst part of it is that we're not seeing any pushback by our conservative pro-life MPs. We're not getting any pushback from our. How about our provincial MPs? How about our mayors? The mayors of these towns where these crisis pregnancy centers, I bet you if you ask them, uh, in their office, like not openly in the media because they're most of them are like any other politician, they're spineless, they don't want to say anything.
Right.
But I bet you if you were able to ask them privately, what do you think of this crisis pregnancy center in your town? They probably would give it a 5-star rating. And they know because they know how good these crisis centers operate. They know the good that comes of it. There are never, I don't know if there are any official complaints ever filed against these crisis pregnancy centers.
Yeah.
They're right on the same level as food banks. They provide a necessary service. So I believe this is just a lot of smoke and mirrors and hype for just to show that Mr. Trudeau is Mr. Abortion. He loves abortion. He worships at the shrine of abortion. He has blood on his hands, and so does the whole Liberal Party, as far as I'm concerned, and the NDP. And any pro-life MP out there, provincial or federal, that doesn't speak out against it also has blood on their hands.
Yeah.
So we need to hear from our brothers and sisters who are in leadership positions, and that includes the church. Where is the church? I don't know. I'm sure there must be, please God, there must be hundreds of tweets, Facebook posts, whatever, that are condemning this action by Trudeau, by the from the church. But I haven't seen them. They don't come across my feed. And here we've got a new cardinal in Canada, Archbishop Leo, now Cardinal Leo. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Maybe he has said something about it, but please, God, give strength to our elected officials, and let's hear some pushback from these people.
Yeah, exactly. So it appears that Trudeau, like you say, he thinks that he's going to get some kudos, some praise. Maybe people will forget about his other indiscretions and scandals if they see him as as he puts it, a defender of women's choice and reproductive choice and so on, which simply means, he wants them to choose abortion. It's really strange when you think of the immigration thing that they're now backing away from a little bit in hopes of defusing that public outcry against their broken immigration system. But that immigration system really came into place because Canadians were not reproducing. Our fertility rate was so far down that they felt, rightly or wrongly, that they had to bring in a lot of people from other countries to try to keep our workforce up. That's
and to stay in power too, because it also buys you votes.
Exactly. He's going down the same road as Kamala Harris just went down. She put abortion at the top of her platform, thinking that by doing that she was going to secure the votes of women and progressives. And I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief that her full-throated abortion campaign ran aground at the U.S. Presidential election. But that it doesn't mean it's still obviously many people think the way she thinks, and along with the mainstream media. I think that's a big problem in Canada as well. The mainstream media seems to take up the chorus every time if the prime minister or anyone else attacks the pro-life movement. They seem to favor his approach. I know in our community, I have been on the Smithers Pro-Life board for I guess over 30 years, and we have a pro-life care center. And one of the services we provide is pregnancy testing. Women, young and some not so young, come in for pregnancy testing. And of course, it is true that some of them think that we are going to help them get an abortion. And of course, that's not our job. That Mr. Trudeau has all kinds of people out there, all kinds of services, and has thrown all kinds of money at providing abortion, providing it, which we don't consider a service, but providing someone to end a baby's life. But why should we do that? Or why should we give any credence to that? That's not our job. So we provide a valuable service, helping women determine if they are pregnant, and then helping them giving them information so they can make a good decision. They may still make a bad decision, and we can't stop that. That's free will that people have in the country, and the law currently allows it, but we're not going to promote or assist in any way in the taking of innocent life. So that it's a very unfair and unrealistic expectation the Prime Minister has that he can force pro-life people, pro-life care centers into tooting his horn.
Exactly. And it's spreading too, this fever. Nova Scotia NDP leader Claudia Chender has come out to say that they too want to um, scrutinize and close down crisis pregnancy centers as well. So this is and I'm sure that New Brunswick. I mean, New Brunswick has more or less done the same thing, not threatening to close down CPCs, but they've increased abortion access or promised to increase abortion access. So it's spreading like wildfire, but I think, Rod, it's a losing battle for these people. These people are not going to come out the other side of this as winners.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, this is a blatant slap in the face to God. And you can't slap God in the face and get away with it.
No.
So
Well,
something's going to happen.
that's sort of our theme regarding abortion and federal policies. And you know that we've talked about this many times, that we don't believe that God can bless this country or the provinces if we continue to shed innocent blood, and we continue to treat that as a high and noble thing. It's an insult, as you said, to God.
Yeah.
And when we want our economy to function, we want energy prices to be low, we want to be able to afford our housing and groceries, and we think we can do all that while we are continuing to shed innocent human blood, both in abortion and euthanasia. It's just not going to work that way. So that's one of the reasons we agree with you. Politicians, whatever party they're in, and those that have the privilege of being elected to represent the people in their district, have a responsibility to speak up for the defense of human life. And these pregnancy care centers, crisis care centers, are such a benign part of, it's not the political arm of the pro-life movement. It is the compassionate arm reaching out to help someone that is in a difficult situation, and for the government, this liberal government, and to attack directly is so offensive, so offensive.
Yeah. And they're doing it under the guise that they want to make it very clear on their websites and in their literature that they do not offer abortions or contraception or even refer to abortions. So most of them that we know of already do that. So this is just a way to stigmatize the whole movement, right? They just want to make anything to do with pro-life work unacceptable, detestable, and to get the public on their side to start hating on us as well.
Yeah.
It's just evil.
And you say there's no bill actually tabled yet. Where do you see this going? Of course, the whole government there's question about how long this government is going to last.
Right.
Personally, I don't see it coming down this fall. I don't think there will be the appetite for, it's not even fall anymore. It's going into winter now. It's not a very good time to hold an election. What do you see in the next 6 months as far as this movement by the Prime Minister, and maybe if you have any comments about the government's sustainability over the next 6 months, what do you see?
Yeah, it's hard to know because the bill has been on the docket for some time, several weeks, perhaps 4 or 5 weeks, I think. And they haven't been either. either they're hesitating to bring it out because they really don't. I don't know, Rod. I don't know the games they're playing, but maybe there's some sliver of conscience that in the party that says, you know what, they aren't really that bad. They are actually doing pretty good work, but we need to solidify our base and tell people we're doing something on abortion. And, so this is, again, this might just be some clever tactic to bring it up in the conversation and in the House so that they can start pointing fingers at the conservatives who are killing them in the polls.
Yeah.
And trying to get people to get them rallied up and riled up against the conservatives, those mean, nasty conservatives that want to keep women pregnant barefoot in the kitchen. So that could be the reason behind it, and they don't want to actually bring it out at all. And there is sort of a kind of a filibuster going on anyway with the liberals or the conservatives in other House matters. So they haven't had the time to bring anything new out. So that could also be part of the delay as well. And if they it could be delayed long enough that we find that maybe they can be toppled by a non-confidence vote at some point over the next, I don't know, six or so months. That would be awesome if that happened. Not that I'm a big fan, or we are a big fan of Polyev jumping in as prime minister, because the status quo will not change. We'll still have abortion on demand. But Trudeau's record for all things that govern us is just. Is there anything good that has come out of that government? I don't know. I don't know.
Not that I can think of. No.
Yeah. So this and the NDP are really gearing up. They're doing the same thing. They're trying to outdo the Liberals in their pro-abortion stance, and it's all just part of the let's make people aware of how quote unquote pro-life the Conservative Party is, and that they shouldn't be elected if you believe in a so-called woman's right to life or right to abortion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, Rod. I'm amazed that Trudeau hasn't stepped down yet. I mean, the arrogance of it all. I don't think there's a single caucus member in the party that still want him as leader.
Yeah.
But it's strange the way things go in Canada. We don't seem to have that that kind of response and reaction to things that they do in other countries. So I can just see us biding our time until October of next year before the election gets called.
Yeah. Well, we're heartened by some of the things that have taken place below the border in the U.S. The appointment of a number of solid pro-life people to various important positions, Ambassador of the United Nations, Elise Stefanik, and Mike Huckabee, now the ambassador to Israel. Some really good things going on down there, and we'd like to see the same thing happen in Canada. I would like to see that level of cowardice, in the opposition parties, especially the Conservative Party. I would like to see them begin to, proclaim conservative values in the area of life. I know they fear the electorate. They fear, and Polyev particularly, I think, is putting pressure on his people not to become known as pro-lifers, whatever. They think it's toxic. I think that's a media bias that has been accepted over the years. Being pro-life is a failing,
harmful to your reelection.
It should be. If you're not pro-life, it should be hard to get elected. But
right.
In our country, the narrative has been for so long that being pro-life makes it impossible to get elected. And we hope
Yeah.
that will change. And some of the work you're doing with Campaign Life Coalition to educate the public and advocate and mobilize solid pro-lifers, I think, is so crucial for the changing of the Canadian mind on these issues.
How much time do we have, Rod?
You take whatever time you need, and then
Okay.
yeah.
I can ramble on about such things. I'm really my mantra these days is something like what you had just alluded to, that electing pro-life politicians, candidates to office, um, that's well and good. But really, what we need is, the NDP and the Liberals, especially the NDP, they have activist politicians. We need activists. We need pro-life activist politicians, and we don't we don't get very far if we elect a pro-life candidate into office and he or she shuts up about it once they're in office. So we really need to make sure that we shake the bushes, and that maybe you're already doing it, but maybe people like me and my circle of friends who are not in politics ought to be stepping up. The church has always commended and in fact made it's taught that it's almost our duty to engage in politics at any level. But I think the emphasis used to be on actually running for office and getting elected, because the church wanted to be at the political table. So we need good Christians to step up, and I mean activist Christians. They have
Yeah.
to be elected for the purposes of bringing God's commandments to life in their respective legislature. They cannot allow themselves to be caught up in partisan politics, and they can't toe the party line. That is not why they are elected, unless that party line is you know God's laws and moral laws, virtuous
Yeah.
laws that they're trying to legislate.
Yeah.
But you know, to not to be so quiet about everything when it comes to any law, any legislation, any motion that has to do with morals, faith. Where are these politicians?
Yeah.
And you know what? Most politicians, from what I can tell, or most conservative politicians, I go to church, or synagogue or mosque or whatever, but they're usually religious minded people, and yet they seem to just hang it up at the door when they come into the office. So that has to stop, and we have to start demanding more, and we have to start looking at our neighbors, our fellow church going friends, and start asking, "Hey, Tom. Hey, Mary. Why don't you run for counselor, trustee, provincial or federal MP?" And that's what the CHP does, and that's what you have been doing for decades. Uh, Attracting solid, good Christians to run. The problems, we could talk all day about why aren't they getting elected. There is no magic answer to that, except the fact that other Christians aren't voting for them,
Yeah.
or at least not enough of them. So, but we can say the same thing about what just happened here in New Brunswick. Why didn't the Conservatives win? Where is the Christian vote? Where was it? Did 30, 40, 50 or more percent of the Christian vote go to Susan Holt and her Liberals?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I don't know. Or did they stay home?
Yeah.
I haven't read the final numbers as far as how many came out to vote, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably in the normal range, somewhere in the 60s, right? 60 percentile range. So either all the good Christians are staying home and not voting because they didn't have a pro-life or a good candidate to vote for, or they're voting for the wrong person. And God help us, it is our obligation to vote for a Christian candidate,
Yeah.
providing they're doing and saying the right thing. So the CHP, we love the CHP because that's what you do. Um, you're founded on biblical principles. Your campaigns include God, include Christ. They include pro-life and anti-euthanasia, and all of the moral issues is they're there up front. And we need the church to step in and be a voice. We need in fact, Rod, sorry, I don't have time to look at everybody's Twitter feed or,
Yeah.
social media. But if the CHP isn't crying out and pushing back against all these nefarious deeds done by MPs, they should be. And the CPC or the Trudeau Liberals need to be told to lay off the CPCs, and they need to be told by other party leaders and parties. So if you haven't told Trudeau off lately, Rod, I'd like you to do that. I mean, Maxime Bernier does a pretty darn good job, and he's a good example to follow. The guy is an oxymoron of some kind. Like he's said the most pro-life and pro-God things that any federal leader other than yourself, any non-Christian, if you will, party has said, and yet he still has trouble getting elected. So, and it's not because of his pro-life stance or Christian views. It's because the party, or it's because the electorate is trained like a seal to just go with the party that it's either liberal or conservative, and sometimes the NDP get a leg up.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Some kind of psychosis, psychotic.
Yeah, it's part of the paradigm or the narrative that, as you say, we've been trained into partially by the media and so on. That people think they only have two choices, and so they, sometimes we call it, depending on who the candidate is. There are some, of course, we want to always give our praise and not adulation, but our thanks to Kathy Wagenthal, who has stood out among the conservatives. That she's actually used her time in office to address pro-life issues, and
she puts her male counterparts to shame.
Yeah.
Because this is going to sound sexist, but it takes a woman to step up and do a man's job to protect babies in the womb and women from harm.
So
the men, where are the men?
Yeah, I hope she will continue to be strong in that way. Arnold Viersen got kind of shut down about his, he's been another one that has been willing to speak about these issues, but as I gather from outside, he's kind of been shut down by Mr. Poilievre, again, for this fear of the party being pegged to be pro-life or whatever. But anyway, those that have these convictions need to step up and continue to do the work and speak up. And if they no longer find themselves comfortable in the Conservative Party, they'd certainly be welcome in ours. So
one of the things that we can also do as pro-life and Christian people is to make sure that our pastors are properly informed as to the political landscape that they're dealing with. Recently, I started to make little booklets or pamphlets, if you will, to give to my priest so that he knows who his local representatives are, from trustee to counselor to federal or provincial and federal, and then give them a bit of a voting record if there is one, and also 5 or 10 points on abortion, euthanasia, etc., like talking points that he could use, whether it's in the media, whether it's just talking to these individuals. Because you see, I think that if our priests and pastors know or have some kind of working relationship, or just any kind of communication between their elected officials, I think those elected officials will think twice before they table a bill that might go against that particular Christian pastor's views, or if they're voting on a bill, they might think twice and say, "Gee, I wonder how Father so and so would think about this." Because I think if they have that, it's like the old cartoons where they had the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. It's kind of like the pricking their consciences to have, if they have the knowledge, if they've talked to pastor so and so, father so and so, and they've speak to them on a fairly regular basis. That could be quarterly, it could be biannual. I don't know. I just think that having that communication and sort of what would you call it, external conscience that's looming out there. It may make them think twice before they vote against or for something that would go against church teaching and certainly against life. So that's something that we could all do as church-going people, is to inform our pastor, but not just by talking to him on the steps, but actually giving him something in paper to say, here's some information. You should just tuck it in your drawer. And when you need to, you might want to just reach out to your local counselor, because, the city councilor is deciding whether to close down crisis pregnancy centers, or perhaps not even having them licensed to practice in your town.
Right.
Conversion therapy was all brought about by local councils. So why, these are matters that should be front and center with our clergy.
Yeah.
And they should be well informed, and they should know who they are, and more importantly, those politicians should know who their clergy, who are they serving?
Right.
How many how many how many Christian denominations are there in their riding? How many pastors? Can you imagine if you had, and I know some do, some of the pastors in some towns put together prayer breakfasts and whatnot for their elected officials. That's a good idea too, but it can't be too, what would you say, friendly? I think those breakfasts tend to be a little bit sort of nuanced in such a way that they're not really challenging the politicians. So I think if you gave them, if you equip the pastor with the political information they need to know, and somehow get the two of them to talk, I don't know. I think that would go a long way to bringing about a more virtuous city or town.
Yeah. No, and excellent advice. So, Jeff, before we go, can you give us, I would like you to give us two website URLs. One is for Campaign Life Coalition, and one is for LifeSite News. Can you?
Yeah, you said 90% of it. All you got to do is add .com on the end of both of those names: lifesitenews.com and campaignlifecoalition.com.
Wonderful. We encourage people, if you're not already a regular visitor to these sites, please check them out. You'll get a lot of information. LifeSite has been a tremendous news organization, unearthing and distributing information that the mainstream media has ignored or even hidden, or even contravened, gone against. So we appreciate the work that you and your colleagues do at both those organizations, and keep up your good work. Enjoy New Brunswick. Let's hope that the shift in the politics there is a temporary thing, and that the people of New Brunswick and the people of Canada get back to a pro-life and pro-family approach to politics.
Amen. Yep, that's right. Thank you very much, Rod, for having me today. It was
Thanks,
a great
Jeff.
discussion.
Appreciate you taking the time, and God bless you.
God bless you.